All right, so welcome back to another scene for This Life, set in beautiful Duluth, Minnesota, where we are on the Sept of the Hearth's Fire. And in this case, fuck it, today we're in the garage, or at least Charlotte is. Charlotte's in the garage, probably looking around annoyed because, she can't work on her bike that just got destroyed. The battle buggy is still in Sunnydale. I mean, her other car is long gone memory at this point, and so all she has is there a whole nother buggy? She can't remember if there's another one. But there is the shell of one that she scrapped to reinforce the actual battle buggy. So you know what? After the the completely inexplicable damage to the garage not too long ago, she's probably going through and making a list of what tools need replacing, what various structures need replacing. The lift survived. That was good. But yeah, so Charlotte's got a laptop set up offside, and probably at this point has a notebook and has just got drawers open, and is just going through, going, nope, that wrench out of this set is gone. Shit, and yeah, just kind of taking inventory, as it were. So keeping an open ear to the link, and has made it clear enough that when people are free, they're free, and she has things to discuss.
Remy just comes into the garage. You want to see me?
Yes, actually, I do.
What happened to you?
She glances around like, damn it, how did you know? Because she's tried to clean it up, but things are. She glances around. Ragnar happened in here, mostly. After,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
This is where I was when the Alpha howled.
I see.
Sylvie arrives a little bit behind Remy. She takes a look around the garage. Wow, it's you've redecorated since I was here last.
Yep. Just the man, I thought I'd done such a good job. But she's glancing around, realizing like whole pieces of fucking furniture have been moved out. So she's just looking around like, fuck. Yep. You know, I kind of inherited the place, so new furniture. Little thumbs up.
Oh yeah, make it totally make it your own. Sylvie gives a thumbs up back. She's being exceedingly polite right now.
There you go. How go the feelings?
I just need 3 more, and then I'll have enough for each of us to have one and have a spare in case something happens.
That's enough for all of us and a spare?
Enough for all of us to have one and to also have a spare for everyone.
Oh. I suppose in a pinch we can go before we get that far.
I should be able to finish the last 3 today. But if I can't, yeah.
Even if you can't, that's assuming all of us were able to make it?
Yes.
Even then, the chances of all of us being free at the same time, you probably have enough for all of us to have one in a spare already. So that's good. We need to hit that ASAP.
Sylvia's gonna look at Remy. Do you swim?
We have the. Yep. What? Yes. But yes, Charlotte. While we have the breathing room.
There's a fleeting glance to Sylvie and then one to Amy. Just at some point, I know you've already told us about what happened, but I do want to talk to you at greater length about fusion drop.
So you could hear in the distance a loud baritone voice getting closer, It sounds like it's having a conversation with someone that it's basically shouting with across the the area outside the garage. Yes, Raya, whatever you say. Yes, absolutely. Remedial lessons. Absolutely. Whatever you say. Mm-hmm. Yes. Sundown. Absolutely. Make sure you wait for me. I'll be there. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The door of the garage will open, and a very amused yet sad, slightly looking Bastion closes the door behind him and sighs heavily.
There's a slowly rising eyebrow.
Maybe just finds a place to perch and coil. It's probably on top of one of those like really heavy toolboxes, the drawers and everything.
The snazzy ones. The envy of fathers everywhere.
You could tell just from his mannerisms that apparently it's been a day. Yeah.
Well, someone certainly seems to have a full schedule.
Sounds truly engaging.
Apparently, the Guardians believe that I need lessons in deer hunting.
It's a useful skill.
It is. Highly.
For a caveman, perhaps.
The tiniest smirk. The glasswalker's like, man, my notes.
He looks around. Good to see everything seems to be in order. And an eyebrow raises. You could tell he's being extremely sarcastic.
It says, in order as it can be. Just, She pulls open a door and kind of cringes like, oh.
On the bright side, we still have the police car and all of its accoutrement.
That's true.
He'll reach over and he'll take just a wrench that's kind of splayed to one side and put it back on its hook. Nod to himself. Yes, police cars. I'm assuming you've disabled all their usual tracking devices and the radio and everything else, the computer inside, the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it was the first to go before we brought it back here.
Oh, it's not here. It's actually over near the Gallows territory.
Oh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
That's why I haven't repainted it yet. I haven't gotten over there.
Makes sense.
Figure locals are going to recognize a local vehicle, but state vehicle? Probably not.
Whoever's doing he'll kind of wave a hand in an offhanded gesture, remodeling. Make sure they take care of the VIN number. And not just the one in the window. There's going to be one on the engine block and on the inside of the door as well.
Yeah, she pops a little nod. Shouldn't be a problem.
He'll walk over and kind of join the area where people are at this point. On the way, he'll just see a random tool laying on the floor, and he'll just pick it up. We'll say it's a rubber mallet. Just kind of flip it in one hand, have it hanging there in his hand. So how are things?
Absolutely thrilling.
I heard.
Have you had a chance to catch a hold of a Galliard? Do you need a proper recounting of the whole thing?
I have not spoken to a Galliard, no. But, and he kind of raises a hand. Cliff notes.
Cliff notes. She sets aside the notepad, just kind of over on the, she's got kind of desk-like workspaces around the outside of the workshop, and she just kind of tucks the notepad alongside the laptop. Cliff notes. The Alpha of St. Cloud lost his nephew here, sent him here without any sort of announcement to the Sept itself, and he was doing work within our territory. He wasn't recognized, was apparently dealt with by some mission team or another who didn't recognize him, didn't know him for anyone. And so he has come himself, bringing several capable packs, and has been initially assessing, then making a large-scale across-the-city attack on various properties and people belonging to the Sept, and has since then been guerrilla fighting us in our own territory.
Bastion's finding his pedicure extremely interesting.
His pedicure,
Hmm.
as opposed to his manicure.
I'm sorry, his manicure. Excuse
Oh,
me.
there you go.
Sorry.
So after the loss of several Garou, kidnapping of a number of kinfolk, most of which we've recovered, and the fact that at one point he finally managed to take a hold of, what was it, 7 of us? 8? Kind of glancing over to Raimi.
Raimi staring at a wall. Just kind of looks over.
And then demanded tribute and executed one among us. The Alpha took, well, heavier umbrage than he had prior and has since held war.
One of our kinfolk is still lost.
Jasmine, child of Guy kinfolk.
Lost as in missing or lost as in dead?
Lost as in confirmed to be in their, well, fine stewardship.
So not lost. Kidnapped.
Absolutely kidnapped.
From what I understand of how they operate, it's very likely that when we encounter her next, she will not be the same person that we remember.
I suppose that depends on how they treat kinfolk that they plan to use as leverage versus ones they don't.
There's no difference to them. The people they take are treated as slaves.
Stockholm Syndrome is a thing. As are Manchurian candidates. Still finding his manicure extremely interesting.
Whatever the case, we have a fairly good idea now of where she's being held. I don't think, besides, well, a couple nights ago, we haven't heard of them since their last attempted ambush. They've been quieter. Then again, they've lost a number of people at this point. And at least now we have confirmation that they're perhaps not all quite so willing nor necessarily eager as previously assumed. And considering that they're about to lose all of their supply lines, I imagine more of them will be much more willing to talk than they were prior, and to potentially defect. And at this point, she finally plops down in, one of those swivel chairs. Well, they certainly can't go north, not with the declared war. They can't go into Wisconsin. They can't go south. They're getting boxed in at a rapid pace. They're either going to have to dig in or scatter. She'll glance over to Balian. Or, God damn it, Bastion.
Mm-hmm.
I'll eventually remember. No small number of Shadow Lords, but otherwise primarily Bonar and Glasswalker. I'm betting a higher amount Bonar at this point. I have a docket on the known ones that I can send you. And actually, all things considered, she'll probably just lean over to her computer, the laptop, type through a few things, and all of moments later, unless I can't remember, unless he has pointedly kept it from her, Bastion's phone will just kind of do the happy ding.
Oh no, yeah, she knows.
Yeah. Which should give you a chance to catch up on the proverbial who's who. On top of that, we have the known issue with the melding of wild and worm, which is why we need those talons. Kind of nods over to Sylvie, as I believe some attempt is being made to call on a far larger force, and Sylvie's tasks should feed into how much our Theurges are able to do, and how big a thing they can call on.
And we have no idea where the remnants of the Black Spiral Dancers have gone, other than underground.
Oh, they're underground. And I have a map of the tunnels.
The only positive thing from St. Cloud coming in is that Wormish presences in the area have also been made to feel the heat, as it were.
This is true. St. Cloud has no tolerance for Wormtaint among their own people. Or among the people they're dealing with. So at least that hasn't been left to grow completely out of control.
I see. He's kind of looking at his manicure, and then he'll look at the hammer, place it on a convenient shelf. Obviously, not where it goes.
And you had other questions about Sunnydale, didn't you? Glance over to Bastion.
Let's start with how all this started with Sunnydale. Your involvement, particularly.
If you want to get back to the actual root of the problem, it probably stems back to what we had to do to get rid of Patema. The Theurges crafted what amounts to a bomb of wild energy and set it off in the docks, where the spirals had quite the bit of influence. I don't know if it's for sure that started the meshing of the two, but it's a suspected cause. And I was there for it. I later went into the area, and I'm told another group did as well, and witnessed the odd merging of the two. Meanwhile, the Weaver's been kept pointedly at bay. There was an area of the docks that was swarmed over with odd meshing illness and growth. but the pattern spiders wouldn't go near it. Couldn't. I've since been given the impression that there is a far larger and far older spirit, and I get the impression that perhaps the presence of these smaller ones has stirred it into waking. Something probably up north. It seems to be affiliated with the snow and ice. But some much larger being of wild and worm. As for Sunnydale, you know we went there looking for the kinfolk. Yes?
Which kinfolk?
I was told there were Silverfinken in the area. And they'd gone quiet.
He nods.
I was also told there were odd things happening there, so we went to see if perhaps the kinfolk were still alive, or had fled, or were being held captive. No real telling till we got there. So we drove out, found a ghost town. Not a single person, but cars left, parked at stoplights, things left on, as though people had just disappeared all at once. And the gauntlet was paper thin, albeit leading up to the house. The one where the kinfolk, I imagine, should have been. Raimi caught wind of them. The place that had remnants of them. It was so thin that you would simply phase back and forth without a thought or an effort. And by accident. There were a number of spirits that, at least I saw, passive, but looked something like shadow spirits. Looked like that and perhaps Helios. They were an odd hybrid looking thing. But
Helios would make sense considering the cub James and his affinity.
She offers a light shrug. It's true.
Is he from there?
She just glances over and puts a finger up to her lips, like essentially the indication of this is a hush thing.
Mm.
Bastion waits. He's
Could
just
be.
looking at Charlotte.
Could be. I admit I hadn't thought of it. It seems as though the house...
Bastion pulls out his phone and types something. Charlotte's phone will go ding.
She finishes the sentence, though, kind of reaches for her phone and flicks it open.
It says, "You know he is, yes?"
You know he is?
Yeah, talking about James.
Oh, yeah. She gives
Okay.
a nod as she goes on.
Okay.
From everything we could tell, the home of those Silver Fangs was the generation point, or kind of the central point of the disturbance. On the other side, it looked like some great tree. She glances over to Raimi because he got a better look at it than she did.
Calling it a tree would be generous.
I was feeling generous. Please. She kind of gestures to him.
The threshold acted more like a gateway than anything else. Crossing it could place you somewhere at random. I fell prey to it. One of the Theurges did too. And there was no getting in.
No.
No sign of the kin then.
I didn't see any of them. I only had tracking signs to go by. Rubbed off scents. Some other signs of human passing. Could have been, depending on the weather and whatever was going on in the town, signs as young as a few hours. But if it didn't rain, or in case of recent events, snow, a sign like that could last over a day.
No bodies or signs of fighting then.
No, none.
No bodies, no. The only things in that town were whatever this phenomenon made of them. The spirits there didn't start as spirits. I don't think.
I don't know. I don't think so either, though. I don't know if people were pulled across and changed. I don't know. I want to say Melanthe said something about seeing people frozen in ice.
Well, what?
She kind of upends her hands. I don't know. I didn't get the whole lowdown on that thing that she saw. But when she crossed over, you said, like, jittering sideways. It's like she went somewhere else briefly and saw something else.
There were reports of people being frozen solid up north.
There were. And the storms up there are, I think, tied to the same phenomena.
As far as the storms go, even the Wendigo won't get near them. Doomclaw's the only one to walk in and walk out again.
No, the last time I talked to Longshadow, they were in fact very leery of the storms, concerned about them. They were growing in frequency and strength.
And this place, this home, is supposedly the genesis of even those storms as well?
I don't think they're the genesis of the storms, but I think they're definitely the center point to that area's effect.
I see. Was there any sign of any sort of ceremony or anything that looked wrong? Obviously, there's going to be small signs of Guru activity with it being the home of kin. Or was there any of that?
The only thing that looked ritualistic that happened to us anyway. I don't know what the larger spirit was saying. I don't have the tongue for it. But when it stopped, the other spirits in the area were heard, more or less, being overseen by another secondary spirit.
That's
They
right.
consumed it, changed, and pursued us.
There was, I told you, there was a number of passive spirits, and there was another one looking over them, like a shepherd over a flock, almost. And then she kind of glances to Sylvie. Wasn't he called the Herald? That thing appeared.
The Herald, yes.
Spoke about this greater thing that was coming.
The Harbinger.
And he clearly wanted us to attack. He wanted us to kill him. The hard part seems to be, she glances over to Balian. If you, or goddammit, Bastion, one day, I'm gonna make you rename this character, I swear to God. The trick of it seems to be that these hybrid spirits, killing them just resets their cycle. And they change with each cycle. So killing them potentially brings them back in the next stage that they need to continue perpetrating whatever this odd taint is. And when we refused to attack, that happened. She nods to Rami. All those passive spirits jumped on their shepherd, consumed it, and became more humanoid, but more monstrous at the same time. They looked more like they were made of flesh, but
certainly more aggressive then.
Oh, yes. Have you seen the Predator movies? She kind of picks her hands up to her mouth and then splays them. They became extremely aggressive, and it was a hard press to run from them and to get across the gauntlet. Every time they struck, it stripped away Gaia's blessing that much more. Made it that much harder to pull on it to slide across.
Bastion will look over at Sylvie. Is there a way to trap a spirit without killing it?
Binding it would do that. But to bind them indefinitely would be a challenge. One of the higher-ranking Theurges, perhaps Lily or Forgotten Earth, Ryos would be able to do it.
I do feel I must ask. Are your current tasks not in service to our plans in this regard?
Yes. They will bolster the Sept's defenses. I don't know how. The tasks were given to me by Lily.
Well, I posit this then. If this Adrian Godey, in conjunction with others of her of equal rank and experience, put this upon us, then is it not likely the priority in dealing with these spirits?
Yes. And I
Very well.
do know the water spirit she has me working with is quite powerful.
Then perhaps we should fulfill this task and wait to see if all has not yet been revealed to us.
I've heard some things that I find concerning, but it makes sense. There are, this harbinger, I suppose. There are things, spirits, they don't just go away. Even if they're centuries old, they don't go away, they sleep, right? And if you think about it,
sense, yes.
They may sleep very deeply and very far away, but they still sleep and they exist. And if this harbinger and the kind of taint that it produces and strengthens and draws on are very, very old things, there's a chance that an equally ancient spirit could be of a nature to actually deal with it. As there would have been checks and balances back then as there are now.
Yes, that is a good possibility. But it would need to be awakened before its slumbering nature was taken advantage of by the corruption we're trying to stop.
It would. It absolutely would. She kind of like, honestly, as she's sitting and thinking, she's thoughtlessly kind of idly thumbing the scarred side of her lip. Just because, hey, there's a texture here I could poke.
It's okay. It's okay.
Weston, you gotta hold your hand still. Come here.
Admittedly, my initial thought with Sunnydale had been something like, the Weaver can't enter naturally, but if enough pattern spiders were released inside, they would do what comes naturally and try to repair the gauntlet, which would repair some of the damage. But if a bunch of pattern spiders were released, everything in the area would become intensely hostile, and there's no guarantee they'd be able to do their work. Which just brings up the idea of bringing larger and larger things to defend the pattern spiders so that they can finish their work.
Why
But that
large?
just-
Why not the other side of that coin? Instead of larger things, why not many small ones? Think in your spider aspect. If we were to be able to create small bindings that we could use as the group comes forward, or perhaps even some sort of binding shield where when these spirits become hostile, or even before they become hostile, preferably before, we can bind these spirits as they are. If they're bound, it doesn't have to be forever. We could, I'm not sure the physics, again, I am no theurge, but I'm not sure how this works. But if we can bind them temporarily, even if it's for an hour.
They still aren't there to go hostile.
Exactly. And the pattern spiders on the other half of that coin aren't tempted to attack them. So they would go about their business.
Theoretically, a number of Theurges working together could probably bind them to a place.
They need to be bound into items. Being bound into the place, it would, well, they'd still be a factor, wouldn't they? As the pattern spiders were working.
I'm thinking like snaring them to a spot that they can't leave.
Well, I could bring them into a snare. It would be interesting. But all things considered, now that I think about it, I could call all of the spirits within a certain area to come to where I was, give them a single command. If that is enough for the Theurges to throw up, or even the spiders to throw up a cocoon, throw up something to hold them. Anything that holds them long enough for the pattern spiders to do what they need to do.
Now that would, and again, I'm just following the train of thought that I'm hearing. If we were able to bind those spirits long enough, again, just taking for granted that you're able to make a deal with the pattern spiders to give them back this area, or at least access to it, in the numbers that we would need. And I can't even fathom how many pattern spiders it would take to handle this much blight. we'll just go ahead and take that for granted. We're able to do that. We're able to call the pattern, the spirits to wherever you're looking at. The binding goes off. We've got the time. At that point, we've got this doorway, or this, is that what you called it? A doorway, an opening? He's looking at Charlotte.
There was literally the door to the home that the kin would have stayed in. And the second that Raimi touched the knob, he snapped across at this central point. I don't know if I'd call it a doorway, but I'd definitely call it.
So did you attempt to enter the home by another access? A window, another door? To see if it's the same. Is it the same on all of them, or just that one?
It seemed very much as though it was that immediate area around the home. The closer we got, the thinner the gauntlet, the more people started slipping back and forth. Out on the streets, there was an odd feeling of weightlessness between the two, but close to that home, we were practically falling over ourselves going back and forth across the gauntlet. It was as though it wasn't there at all.
Bastion looks over at Sylvie. Is there a talon or something like that that can be created to solidify us on one side or the other?
Not that I know of. There is a gift, a tether, that would keep us from getting lost on the other side.
I don't think it's so much a matter of getting lost. We don't go anywhere locationally, not really. I think some of us saw a further depth past the gauntlet, but we came out in the same spot on the other side.
So you were not able to enter the building itself on either side of the gauntlet, is that correct?
No, there was something far more daunting on our side. And I didn't even see an entrance to it, really.
What shape did this barrier take?
Raimi's right, calling it a tree is probably being generous.
It was tree-shaped.
Bastion will turn, he'll kind of throw some stuff around, probably making, Charlotte very happy that he's making more of a mess now. Until he'll find like an old cardboard box, and he'll tear part of the lid off and grab a piece of whatever he thinks might be able to make a mark, an old Sharpie probably, considering it's a garage, and we'll put it in front of Remy. Draw.
This I can do. It takes him some time.
Oh, sure.
You can even see him fucking with the felt tip of the Sharpie itself to create different types of lines. Like, now you've given him something to draw with. Like, the art kid in him just starts slowly crawling out. Like, oh, fuck it, this is good. This is gonna be good. I don't care. And the image that you see is the creepiest shit on earth, especially since he hasn't shaded it or anything. Calling it a tree, it certainly seems to have been made of wood, but it is more like this. It's like how you'd imagine, like, an Ent if Tim Burton was in charge of drawing it.
Okay.
Hunched over this structure.
Edward Scissorhands meets the Ents from The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm remembering the picture Torn used, and it was creepy as shit.
Yeah. It's a tree. You'll simply look over at Charlotte. How do you kill a tree?
Literally or spiritually?
Yes.
I've seen what happens when they're calcified.
Fire.
He looks at Sylvie and taps his finger on his nose. What is the most cleansing, cleaning force of nature, the force of rebirth. Fire.
It's when rebirth is weaponized to advance a virus. And it just changes and goes along that much more destructively.
But what if that fire is contained?
You mean like getting fire spirits to work in a specific area?
Exactly.
And only that area, enough to be a threat and be threatening, but not enough to kill it.
Exactly.
Outright.
Instead of actually killing the thing, we've started with the pattern spiders. When a tree feeds, it feeds off of the water in the ground. If I could remember my 9th grade geography or geology, it needs sunlight. It needs water. If we use this pattern spiders to take away one of its 2 feedings, now we need to find out what the other one is. Once we take away both ways it's fed, or if we heaven forbid find another way that it's being fed, we take away everything that's feeding it, isolate it, and then let the fire do its work.
Charlotte actually kind of like does a little snap of the fingers and pointing gesture. Regardless of what it is now, if the pattern spiders decide that it is, in fact, a tree, if they define it as a tree, maybe it won't do what I'm worried about it doing. Maybe all things told at that point, if it burns, and that's it. And if it is reborn and it's defined, it might just come back as a tree instead of coming back as something worse than it is already.
In the real world, is it simply a house, or has the house disappeared and the tree taken its place in the real world, in the Tellurian?
The tree has taken the place of the house in the Umbra.
In the Tellurian, it still looks like a home. Abandoned just like the others, as though everyone just disappeared mid-task. It's not like we could see inside, mind you, but that was the
I
state.
wonder if we could use the dual nature of this area to our benefit and force the tree into the Tellurian. Would that break or at least weaken the spiritual aspect of it and make it more likely to become a tree instead of being reborn again as something else?
It might. A bright side, convincing the spirits, at least, who are affiliated with my brood. She kind of glances over to Sylvia, like, oh, first the little, you know how it is, little nod. Shouldn't be hard. Wanting to repair a place like that should be already a driving desire.
It's been a while now. Not too long. I'm still a young guru. He kind of smiles. But if I remember my cub training, there is such a thing as the balance. And it does seem that the balance is out of whack here.
Grossly out of whack.
One would seem to think that it was our duty to place it back into balance. And that Gaia herself, especially considering we're not destroying a thing, simply transforming a thing, He just kind of looks at Charlotte. This may be a way.
There's a bit of a nod. I thought, again, it's very thoughtful. Ironically, Umbrella stuff is really not Charlotte's Kool-Aid, so there's a lot of processing going on.
Bastion will look over at Remy. And you mentioned sign of the kinfolk.
Yes.
Was it sign that they were leaving, or a sign that they had not?
Because before I picked it up, it was not discernible. You have to understand this is a main pathway to and from the home. I had plenty of foot traffic in both directions.
Did you check the entire area around the home? Or just that foot traffic?
Just that part of it. Things got too hostile to our presence before I could truly investigate.
He kind of nods. I understand. So they could have departed from another direction, however unlikely.
I've seen stranger things.
He looks over at Charlotte and Sylvie. Could Ken be used to fuel something like this?
In what way?
The problem is that, as far as I can tell, the only thing spurring this on are the spirits themselves. There doesn't seem to be any other guiding hand on this side. It's like a really gross and heretical natural phenomena. I haven't been able to find any sign of people involved in this happening. It's storms that are unnatural blowing up. It's places like this where now and again even people are falling across the gauntlet because it grows thin, because these kinds of spirits start cropping up like cancer and spreading and having that negative effect on the area around them. It's almost like a spiritual disease. It just crops up and all these symptoms start appearing. But I'm really not sure, besides this talk about the Harbinger, what the source of it is and how to deal with it, besides what I said before. Apparently this Harbinger, or this something about a king, or a whatever the thing at the very root of this is, it's old. It's not new. It's very, very old. And the only thing that's been presented to me that makes sense as a way to deal with a very ancient threat is a very ancient natural predator to that threat.
Could that be what's happening in the north? That Gaia has realized this threat is coming, and it's released one of its most potent natural predators.
She kind of rubs the corner of her lips and gets a little still for a second.
He kind of shakes his head to the side and he's kind of, again, balance. It's all going to react at once.
If
you said it was a disease, how does a body react to disease?
I'm honestly of the impression that the natural balance to it is already awake. I'm just not sure that it has seen those. I think it hasn't encountered each other yet. I think it hasn't been brushed up against the threat, and that's why it hasn't reacted. But I think it might already be awake.
I do not want to put too much into names. However, names do hold power. You stated that this creature or this spirit you spoke to was called what again?
The one that we spoke to? Not the Harbinger, the just snapping her fingers.
The Herald.
The Herald.
And the thing that it was stating was coming was called the Harbinger.
Yes.
A herald is someone who announces. That makes sense. A harbinger is a thing or person that announces or signals the approach of another.
I don't know that the Harbinger is the actual root so much as a larger threat than even the Herald was. There's something going on. I saw signs. I saw a prophetic. She finally starts rooting through her satchel. I saw pulls over the laptop and starts pulling up the gallery, flitting through things, and finally flits through to essentially a picture of where, I mean, you can tell she just took a top-down picture of where runestones and things had been cast. And I mean, she points to it. This all ties in to this thing with the red tree at the center. Like the one in Wisconsin. We'll glance back to Sylvie.
Head snaps at the mention of Wisconsin. What red tree in Wisconsin?
There's a garden there. An umbral garden where the trees all have leaves of different colors. Each tree has a color. And I'd seen this, she taps the screen thoughtlessly, and heard about this red tree. There are red trees to the north of the city now, between us and Wolfspawn, I believe, that have grown. And in Wisconsin, in that garden, there is a tree with red leaves. And I seem to remember that it was sickly, like it was showing a symptom. I don't know if all the trees are expressions of the same spirit, and maybe that's why it shows as sickly.
And this tree that you've seen.
It keeps cropping up tied to this. It's not there. I didn't see one in Sunnydale. Unless that big gnarled thing, she kind of points over to Raimi's drawing. It was dark. It could have had some red leaves on it. I didn't see, though. I can't confirm that. But it keeps tying back to the red trees. It keeps tying back to these patterns. And I mean, she points to it, and it's it's not the classic, black spiral, one long spiral. It's more as if things are branching out in an arc from the center. It keeps coming back to this pattern. It keeps coming back to the red trees, the gauntlets thinning. There's other places where people have been pulled across, and it doesn't end well. Finding and having to dispatch them is...
This garden in Wisconsin, where was it?
As Kitty looks over at the thing to see if it's written in the not east-west. It was, I want to say it was called something like the Lunar Garden.
Where?
That's right.
It's in the court, in the Umbra. The whole court Umbra side is very, very big and very defined and very old.
When you say in the court in the Umbra, Bastion's got his hand like on a part of the workbench. It's probably made out of like some MDF or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he just cricks that whole corner of that off.
There's a moment, and just kind of a glance. It's the straight up. Are we going to talk about what just happened? Glance.
He just kind of, you see him. I mean, there's an obvious moment where he is physically regaining control of himself. He kind of, and then there's that silly moment of him like looking to see if he could actually put the corner of the table back, and then he just drops it and turns as if nothing happened and says, "Continue."
If you'll remember, Bastion, just before you left, we meant to approach Harrier.
Yes.
To get our task. Our task was to go to the court of Wisconsin and to do certain things there.
Yes.
So we went and saw the courts. Mostly Umberside. Much of it seems to be held in the Umbra. While we were there, we were able to speak to various different families, but of greater import is the fact that there was a negotiation scheduled to take place between Wisconsin and Wolf's Maw over the potential for war. I ended up sitting in on those negotiations, having something to do with those negotiations, while the rest of the pack went with a member of the court into the halls beneath the court and ended up stopping an assassination attempt. There were people coming through those tunnels. I don't know where they let out, but they came with assassination orders for both the dignitary for Wolfsmaw and myself. And it seems if I know my Nancy Drew, it seems very much like the event that led to this potential for war was likewise due to a third party killing members of one side to make the other look as though they were responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
There was meddling. However, we managed to snuff it out, and the assassins were dealt with. Between that and other acts taken to come to understand and work with the other families, we were able to recover what we meant to, what Harrier sent us to recover. And he gave us his patronage. That is where I met Jasper. Von Care. Who we have worked with since. Oh, I hear bloops.
There are also my ties now to that area, considering that I am Annie Redmond's proud husband. So, auspiciously, I do have extended family in that direction.
You're connected to the Redmonds, and soon there'll be a connection to the Von Cares on Sept. Never mind the fact that come the wedding day, I'll be announcing an alliance.
Wedding day. His eyes just kind of calmly fall on Charlotte.
Yeah, Sylvia's looking at Charlotte too.
My wedding. I have a fiance, remember?
And so the scarred spider marries a Chimbeson.
In the presence of members from 3 septs besides her own.
You're even packed with an Ulrichsen bannerman.
And Ulrichsen will be giving me away. An Iverson will be... What's the word? Fuck me. God damn it, what does the priest do?
Officiate?
Thank you.
Officiate.
Fuck me. The word was gone from my brain. Yeah, and Iverson will officiate. There will be people from Wolfsmall. There will be people from Last Hope. There will be people from Wisconsin present for either the ceremony or at the very least for the reception.
Bye-bye.
And I missed it. What was your husband's soon-to-be name?
My husband's a Trimbuson. Felix. She actually jerks the thumb back towards the cabin. But I made an agreement with Jasper Von Care, and so during the reception I will be announcing my alliance to House Von Care.
Sylvie takes a deep breath and starts pacing.
Good girl, taking a deep breath and not saying anything.
Sylvie, can you get me a beer outside?
Yeah, sure. Right. Anybody else want anything while I'm making a drink run?
Just go now.
Okay.
Not a word, Sylvie. The glare. She doesn't have one normally, but she manifests one just for Sylvie. This is
So what does Bastion roll for rage again? Just his
he
rage?
rolls his rage. He rolls his rage score. That's what he rolls. He just rolls
That's what he
that.
rolls. Yep, he rolls that. Yep, that right there.
You should roll that.
Mm-hmm. He should. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's the thing you should roll while I look up the moon face.
It is Wax and Gibbous.
Oh, it's probably not gonna help.
Nope. I mean, look at the bright side. It's not a full moon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's diff 5.
Mm-hmm. That's 4 successes.
Would you like to spend a willpower there, buddy?
I don't know that he would.
That is up to you, good friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he would. He can't. Yeah. Yeah. What is this thing? So what? I spend the willpower, and what does that do? That just staves it off.
No, basically, sorry, I'm coughing to death. Hold on.
It's okay. Don't die.
So, if you would have frenzied,
Mm-hmm.
you can spend a willpower to force down the frenzy.
Mm.
At which point you are very, very angry, but
Mm.
you are not frenzying.
Mm.
No bonus.
All right. So, you remember that edge of that work table that he ripped off earlier because he got agitated?
Bye-bye, work table.
Yeah. He's going to take that work table and basically just Hulk smash that thing over and over again. Just blood from the fists, just in Hamid, doesn't even care. Actually, he's mad, so he'd probably shift the Glabro. And would just
blow a little rage shifting to Glabro.
Yeah. And he'll just just hammer that workbench until he feels like, and that'll be the physical manifestation of him using the willpower, where you can tell, and in his brain you can tell, because you're in the pack link, he is beating the crap out of that, so he doesn't fight a pack mate.
And that is why, as Sebastian Hulk smashes the shit out of that table, which, let's face it, that
She never liked that table anyway.
she didn't like that table. That wasn't, she didn't buy that table. That table was here when she moved in. That table had a limited life. Anyways, it's fine. It's serving a better purpose right now. And that is why, as Bastian fucking utterly destroys a piece of furniture, Charlotte says not a fucking word and just kind of sucks in a breath and holds it and watches very, very carefully to make sure he doesn't lose it and doesn't reignite the fire by speaking more.
Oh, yeah. Sylvie just quietly, slowly backs out of the garage and then makes a bolt for the beer garden.
About how long should that last, Bob, before he's able to regain control of himself?
I'd be asking me.
I'm just kidding, because you know werewolf better than I do.
Okay, so like the thing is like you damn near frenzied,
Right.
and you likely blew a little bit of rage.
Yeah, he did.
Destroying that table.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've noticed about werewolves is they tend to gas themselves out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I would say that you're going to spend a solid 5 minutes making sure that this table will probably have to be made into even smaller pieces so that it can, I don't know, form the bed of a children's playground.
Even
and you're going to have yourself a long breathe and not think, and then you'll be good. So all in all, I would say this entire endeavor will last 10 minutes hilariously.
Okay.
And in a one-way link through the pack link, Raimi just hears, you get the sneaky suspicion that Bastian isn't a big fan of the Von Cares.
Hey, remember that time I brought up that his last name's Campbell and we should pay attention to that? Do you remember that, Charlotte? Do you remember that? Charlotte, do you remember that?
So while Bastian is smashing the table in the background, Charlotte just reaches over, and it's the most half-assed little, like, thump of a slap. Like, it's not
Just in the
even really a
back head.
thing. It's just kind of the laziest backhand, like, shut up.
I know what it is. Come on, Katie. You and I grew up during the rise of NCIS. It's the Denozo slap.
It is. It's the Denozo back of the head, like, pop. Just the shut up move.
Well, he's going to gas himself out. And then we can try to deal with this again.
Bastian eventually will gas himself out, like I said. He's kind of, I mean, at this point, probably up to the elbows at this point, just covered in his own blood and splinters and just sweating and heaving. And, he finally comes to the point to where he has at least some semblance of speech. And he turns. And his entire body language is just one of intimidation. He can't help it because he's in the room and he's pissed. Have you ever heard this tale of Faust?
Oh, go on.
Faust had ambitions. Faust had a thirst for knowledge and power. Faust made a deal with the devil. For his own soul. He got what he wanted. But the price. Oh, the price.
And she actually responds via the link rather than aloud. Because there are things that she's not proud of, and she doesn't want to say them where people might overhear. Even here. Paranoia is a magical thing. So he says this, and in the back of his head it's just, Bastion, I didn't have a choice.
He's too pissed to speak in the pack link. It's just straight out. Everybody has a choice. And let me tell you how this works. It takes a moment. And it's you can tell he's trying to form words.
Yep.
And they're just not coming right this second. But he's calming himself to the point to where he can make words. When you owe your soul to Jasper Von Clare. Oh, the devil seems like a happy host. He doesn't do anything halfway. He'll point to where where Sylvie disappeared. You see that? That is his creature. And he will point very accusingly, big old fat glabro finger, sent to watch you. He owns that one's soul already. Now he wants yours. There is such a thing as the price that's too high. Alpha.
I know.
I understand you say you didn't have a choice at that time. Jasper Von Clare is not one to leave you with choices.
No, he made quite sure that the cost of saying no was one I couldn't live with. I saw.
Much
I didn't
like
see until I was in the jaws of the trap.
Much the same trap his father fell into. Tell me, Alpha. When a son thinks he needs to replace his father, a son that's very good, but he still loves his father. But he knows his father will never give up his place willingly. How easy is it for that of the crescent moon to make one think they hear things, see things, know things that aren't there. Then conveniently, when charges are brought, this honorable guru who served the nation for years is painted to be seen as a doddering old fool by his own son.
Unless I'm mistaken, Bastion. Eve himself proved in his Adrian challenge that there was worm taint, that there was an actual present form of manipulation and control.
Mm-hmm.
could speak to him about his challenge? If you doubt.
I don't doubt it at all.
I dare say it would not be one of our Theurges who would leave footprints like that.
Now, you tell me of a red tree that's in the court of Wisconsin. The domain of Jasper Von Clare. And I tell you of another tree fitting the same description on the edge of Black Spiral territory. I tell you of a group of Silverfang kin banished from the court of Wisconsin, sent to Sunnydale, whose home is now the nexus for an unholy union between the worm and the wild. I'm no mathematician, Alpha. But sometimes 2 and 2 make fucking 4.
And how am I meant to have known that the kinfolk were banished?
Perhaps your soon-to-be groom knew.
Felix.
I guarantee you, and he points towards where Sylvie left, that one knew.
An easy enough thing to find out.
And yet at the same time, useless. At this point, whether she knew or anyone else knew doesn't help. All it can do is harm the situation.
If she knew, even going in with us, even looking with us for those people, and did not make that knowledge known to the rest of the pack on a mission that hinged around knowing about and finding these people, there'll be a price to pay for that. And it is easy enough for me to learn the truth.
And as soon as you ask her the question, from your mouth to her ears to Jasper Von Clare,
Whether I know or not what he did, I am already oath-bound to declare an alliance.
I'm not asking you to break your oath.
So what will it matter to him if I know if I'm already tied?
Because then he knows that someone here is looking into his business. Right now, he thinks he has the upper hand. He has our eyes and our ears tied up in her and your honor. And I like it that way. Because with that, we have his eyes and his ears. because we know where the threats lie and what the levers are. If we reveal that we understand this, he'll simply change. Right now, we have an advantage that we can't give away. I don't know what his play is. I don't know if he seeks to expand the court of Wisconsin to take our sept, and by then St. Cloud. With your union that you're going to announce, he has very well almost taken our sept under his thumb. There's nothing we can do about that. Not right now.
How does an alliance to me give him an entire sept?
It's not an entire sept, Alpha, but it's a foothold.
Oh, she cringes. Just a little.
And that's all a Silverfang needs. Is a foothold. He looks over at Remy. Packmate, I know you're married. You have kin in that sept. Don't take my words wrongly. I spare no ill will towards your people or you.
From what little I know, your family suffer quite a bit. Yes?
Oh, yeah. He's on the edge of frenzy anyway. Yeah, he needs to roll again.
Don't forget the fact that you blew a bunch of fucking rage. I'm hoping you
Yeah.
blew yourself down to 1 or 0. So taking
would
your
say.
rage, you wouldn't need to roll.
Oh, okay.
Not until you hit 4. Because there's no
Oh.
chance of frenzy until you hit 4.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I would say he probably blew at least 1 to go to Glabro. Probably at least 2 just beating stuff up. Got 1 back from hurting himself. So he's probably hovering around 3. Does that seem feasible?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But you can tell. I mean, the eyes go red, bloodshot. You know, he hulks up again.
Point being, I'm not going to take this personally or as an affront to Ulrichs and Bannerman. Which the Redmonds rightfully are. I understand they've been in Wisconsin for some time. I understand where some of their ties are. My interest is in welcoming them back to the fold. So no, I don't take this as a threat against them. I think you and I have more to speak of later.
He'll nod slowly. That kind of mechanical, I don't trust myself to speak right now. I'm just going to nod. As he starts to calm back down again. What this comes down to, Alpha, is we have work to do. Letting him know that we're aware of what's going on will only hinder the work we have to do. We have kin to save. We have a war with another sept, which, by the way, the kin that were exiled were sent to Sunnydale to act as diplomats to St. Cloud. And then suddenly we're at war with them.
How long ago were they sent?
I'm not sure if Tormund told me. Let me look at my stuff. I don't think he told me.
I might be able to ask him. He's been active on Messenger.
Yeah, let's see.
Because, as it turns out, they had kinfolk active here. They may have even had Guru active in our territory long before this started. Long before this ramped up, and he had an excuse. I want to know how long they were there.
Yeah, he didn't say how long it had been since they got sent there.
Either you can pull it up now, or
No,
pull
he
it up
didn't.
later. I want to know how long ago they were sent there.
It's fairly simple to find out. There's a member of the family that wasn't sent there. He's currently here on Sept.
Of that family.
Yes.
Pray tell who?
No, I'm looking up his name. He's a kinfolk by the name of Vlad.
You have been in contact with him?
I have.
Why wasn't he sent with the others?
They separated them.
Sounds very familiar.
I checked on him. He's been absorbed into the kin community here.
Is he already an extra pair of eyes and ears?
Here? He just kind of smiles. For what it's worth. I just kind of look over his shoulder to where Sylvie left. He knows where to look. The hardest part of all this, he'll kind of look down and then he'll raise his eyes up again to Charlotte, is that despite this entire conversation, we must pretend as if it never happened. You must go on being the pawn of Jasper. That is the best that you can do as we determine if this goes any further or if it is simple ambition that drives him, which it may be. There's nothing in the litany against being a shit.
It's finally it's the weakest smile, but like, oh, that was funny. It's so weak. But it's like, oh, well, at least that was funny.
However, as you've seen, He will not hesitate to discard something that is no longer useful to him. And if he can discard his own father, you can see he's pausing for a second, choosing his words so he doesn't give offense. What do you think he'll do with a Glasswalker?
You're like a fiddle till she goes out of tune.
Mm.
No one wants to hear it anymore.
Or no one listens to what it says anyway.
You remember that wrench he hung back up?
Mm-hmm.
It bounces off the back wall of the garage. Charlotte has a temper too.
Mm.
She just flings the fuck out of it. There's a very loud clang as it hits the wall, ricochets off, kind of bounces, makes an arc, hits the floor, bounces a couple times. That needlessly loud, like, clang! And then, king, 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 as it settles back on the ground.
So he'll nod towards the door. That one has uses. However, mark what you say and do around her. As if anything that you say or do were in front of Jasper himself.
Complication is that I'm fairly sure that she's one of the ones that I spoke to, using the gifts that have been given to me, ensuring that if push came to shove, I knew where her loyalty would fall. It's a very good chance that even if she's being used as a tool, she kind of throws up her hands like it's just the stupidest revelation. It's downright probable that she's flat ignorant to how she's being used, or at least the better part of it. She knows that there are games being played. She knows she's a pawn. I earnestly don't think that she's malicious. Just
Nope.
She entirely may not be. That doesn't change the fact that at any moment, Jasper could snap his fingers and she would have to jump.
Indeed. Or, she's like a master spy and we've all been getting played this entire time and all of my migraines have just been a perpetual head game to get me to finally fucking snip. Or nothing. Or nothing. Fuck it. He just, like, everyone else has been, like, dramatically banging tools. He just sees an empty Coke can on the table and just pushes it off like he's a cat.
It's not even a bottle that would smash. It's just a can.
Yeah. Bastion smiles. What better? What better spy? And he'll raise his hand and raise a finger as a get Omega.
Every time I turn around, it's someone else who's better at this game, more practiced at this game than I am. Fucking. She transitions to the lake again because she refuses to say this shit out loud. Do you know Maria Tremusen is going to be at the wedding? She's going to show up.
Mm.
And she went to the Alpha of St. Cloud and made sure that she bragged so flatteringly about my deeds about my accomplishments, about what a threat I would be to this man who intended to square up against our sept.
At this point, we find ourselves playing four-dimensional chess, as it were. There are Shadow Lord politics at work, Silverfang politics, Get a Fenris politics, and Intercept politics. All of which we happen to be at the center of, apparently. I'm not a man without ambition, Raya. I have dreams. I would love for there one day to be all of the Redmonds amongst Clan Ulrich's. You know, where they were in the first place. And then I can die old, surrounded by my children. But we seem to be at a much higher level, and I would posit that perhaps there are people who were literally raised for that we are now coming up against.
You know, speaking of all these politics, I want the two of you to do me a favor at the wedding reception.
Yes.
And again, backlink. Torvi will be here as my guest. I want as many of you as can be seen to make sense. Sat around her at the reception, treating her like an honored guest.
Well, it's easy with me. Torvi is a friend from my Wanderer days.
Raya.
She flits a glance.
And he's calmed now. Still covered in blood and splinters, but you can tell most of the rage is kind of seeped out of him at this point. There is an old tradition when a visitor comes to visit a court that they be given an escort, should they have none. Might I suggest that as the bride, you make the request that Raimi be that escort for your honored guest.
Oh. Politically, it's a fit, even if they do send the Nielsen with her again.
True. Making even a token contribution to her escort is quite the gesture. The question
Frankly,
is,
long
when
as
expected to make the same gesture to all of my guests.
I can tell you even in the worst case scenario, as long as that tough old bastard's around, we don't need to worry too much about Torvi.
A smile slowly crosses Bastion's face. All your guests.
You think this is a good idea, then?
His eyes will raise. Jasper's attending, yes.
Yes.
He just kind of looks over his shoulder where Sylvie left. Then looks back at her. And that smile is positively sharkish. Another way to control what he sees is to shove his eyes back in his own fucking head.
Do you really relish the idea of her being alone with him? Without the rest of us there? Without any of us in her head?
Raya, she's made her deal with Faust. Her soul is already his.
Once I get a hold of it. I just don't have it yet.
Raya. And he just kind of shakes his head.
I may be inexperienced, Bastion, and I may be young, but I am stubborn as fuck. And my accomplishments, as much as my faults, speak for themselves. I know I don't have her. That's why she's not in the pack. But I'm going to. I just need to figure out how.
Raya, you've met Jasper face to face, yes?
On several occasions.
He's been around when your various deeds and
He knows my deeds.
accomplishments have been sung. Do you not think he would send the wounded pup to the one person he would know would care for it and try to win it from him?
How long do you think he figured she'd actually be useful? Just long enough to make it worth throwing it away?
I don't think he counted on several things.
I can't fathom if he is that willing to throw things away to get a thing he wants. But if the whole point was to have her here long enough to get this deal, how long do you think he figures she will continue to be useful?
I think that question will be answered soon enough. Just because she's here now doesn't mean that the plan that he has for her revolves around your alliance. That was already made before she came, yes?
No.
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 Hmm.
I made the agreement to ally with him because he knew where Perfidy was, and he was offering Wisconsin, offering to intervene on our behalf on this fight with St. Cloud. He was offering interference that we needed.
And Sylvie was sat right next to me.
Considering that she is already in incredibly deep shit, not for getting caught at a clever game, but because she can't decide what she should and shouldn't say, what information isn't hers to give. Don't give her too much credit. It does mean that she will say things that we don't want passed on. If she knows things we don't want passed on. But she'll say just as much for anyone else. She'll make the same mistakes for anyone else.
I was charged with, how do I put this? Lifting her up, as it were, which is an endeavor. I don't know what to think half the time, but I do know this. If you want everyone to know something, tell her. By all means. She's a very honest heart.
And yet, none of you know or knew that she owed her soul to Jasper.
I did.
His eyes narrow.
He's the one who brought her here. He and the Gray Fox. They didn't even pretend it was a secret.
And don't even start me on the whole Gray Fox thing.
There's that bridge of the nose pinch. Case in point. She owes him too. And in exchange for all the things that she owes, she was told he was in the area and just went asking anyone if they'd seen him, because she'd heard he was lurking around our protectorate. And it got far enough that I had to inform the warder, at risk of being found out otherwise, and looking downright treasonous for keeping it to myself. And now the Gray Fox is no longer welcome in our territory.
You see Bastion kind of wave a hand, kind of like in a continue on with your train of thought. And this all benefits.
Yes, I have heard that they are diametrically opposed. So I'm sure it suits him very nicely. Considering that the Redmonds are affiliated with him, and it's one of them that offhand mentioned that he was lurking around. Truth be told, I bet he was nowhere near our protectorate. But all it took was one person speaking out of turn and believing it.
One specific person who is then backed up by someone who is respected. And he kind of, as he says one specific person, he points towards the door. And then he says, by someone who is then respected. And he opens his hand towards Charlotte.
She's still nose pinching. She's like, yes, I know. And I am trying to think of a way to fix it.
Raya, I've told you the way. Right now, the only fix for this is to continue as if it never happened.
I had already decided on this before this conversation. I am not comfortable with the Gray Fox not being welcome on our SUP due to something that I said, not knowing whether or not it was true.
I understand, Raya. But forgive my speech. But politics isn't about what you're fucking comfortable with.
Oh, but in this case, it's in playing ignorant. And this is what I was planning to do while I was. Even before I appreciated how convenient it was for him, I still was not planning to let that stand if I could find a way to undo it. For all that I grew up in the company of Fianna, I have done them no favors as I've gained rank, and I want to fix that. I don't like knowing that if a line is drawn, some of the people that I consider as close as family will be on the other side of it. So I want to fix it. And I have wanted to fix it. I won't play a grand game using the information we have here, using what we've talked about. I'm not going to give myself away. But I am going to try to fix it.
One of the greatest things that we have currently in our possession is knowledge. We know where his eyes are. We know where his ears are.
We know what his short-term goal is. We can guess at his long-term goal.
Probably ties into the other marriage.
So, at this point, we continue. Do what must be done. And then, like a seamstress making a new garment, we start one thread at a time. And we unravel.
You don't seem surprised by mentioning the other marriage.
Right, I've grown up doing this as playground games. There is no plan. There is no second plan. There is no third plan. Perhaps not even a fourth. Before there is a fifth, and a sixth, and a seventh. So he could not hinge all of his bets on you. Or even that one. We are Guru. We fight. Things happen. He needed to make sure this was happening. So no. Another marriage, even had I not known, would not have surprised me.
And I suppose you know they're negotiating between Leaf and Sylvia.
I have heard.
Wanted me to do it because he knew I'd be hurt.
Mm. Not only heard, but trusted. You're not a Silver Fang. You're not a Shadow Lord. You're a Glasswalker. Those with political leanings would look right past the fact that you could be not necessarily aware that you were not without strings.
Do you know any more about the negotiation of terms on that marriage than I do?
I don't know about any of the terms of the negotiation. I can find out.
Please, because I want to see what other checks and balances are in play. Because if all he wanted was to make sure he had a connection to this sept. He's already got it. I may have had to pitch it. I may have had to bring it to him. But I'm not so sure I have to make sure it sees fruition.
Raya, are you familiar with the human history of this planet?
Yes. Yes, I am.
You familiar with something called the D-Day invasion?
Yes, I am.
How many beachheads did the Allies have when they went to take over Fortress Europa?
Don't quiz Katie on history. Jesus Christ.
More than one. Like a bunch. My point is, you, Sylvie, the other marriage, there's going to be some that we don't know about. They all point back to one thing. He's not looking for a toehold. He's looking to add this sept to the court of Wisconsin.
I hate having to sit and look at people that piss me off. Reception can't be over fast enough. She finally just ruffles her hand through her hair. He'll either be here to hear it or he'll make sure someone is here to hear it for him. Whatever the case, whoever he sends, Sylvie can go with them.
And now, he kind of leans over. The next step. We have this opportunity.
Opportunity?
What do you want him to hear? We have captured his ear. What do you want him to hear?
She finally just throws up her hands because, let's face it, she's still a novice to these games. Sure, Bastion grew up in this kind of world, but Charlotte's still learning a baby step at a time, and she's playing with fucking sharks. She just throws up the hands. Probably the same ignorant things I've been saying the whole fucking time.
Bastion takes a finger up to his nose, nods, and gives her the finger gun. Status quo. That's what you want him to hear. You want to hear happy little Sylvie going on and on about the exploits of how Charlotte is so excited about this wedding.
Now she knows that he's a gleaming eye, but he's done her no wrong.
And how this can only be good for the sept.
trying to decide if there's a point in my life where I've ever been this bitter before. I don't think there has.
Bastion will reach into his back pocket and he'll pull out a silver flask. He'll twist the top, take a sip, blink his eyes a couple of times, and then hand it towards Charlotte.
Yeah, she doesn't ask what's in it. None of that. She just takes the offered drink.
It's corn liquor.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Mm.
Swigs it back. Likewise has the moment of like, oh, blankety blank. Okay. Right.
Bastion kind of smiles and shrugs. Maroons need a bit more to get through the rage.
Yeah. Whew. Should get a hold of some of Lawless's moonshine. Doesn't matter if you're in a ruin, it'll put you right on your ass. She offers the flask back over.
He'll walk over and he kind of puts one of those big bloody paws on Charlotte's shoulder. There's nothing you could have done, Raya. If it wasn't you, it would have been someone else. The one benefit that we have is the fact that it was you.
And you know what? Bastion gets, that look. That, god damn it, man. I'm like 22. I don't know the fuck I'm doing kind of look. Oh, I know. And I tried to change the terms, to negotiate the terms, and it only made the noose tighter. And I wasn't willing to lose what he was holding over my head, what he had. I couldn't have lived with myself.
You could see the question is in his eyes, but he's not going to ask.
And I feel like an idiot. But at least alliance goes two ways. At least it
Bastion smiles widely. And now you're starting to think correctly.
Oh, no, it goes both ways. It wasn't the worst deal I could have been offered. And he didn't just offer the Vonkiers. He offered to speak to the greater Wisconsin, the whole court, and sway them for me. The same way he wanted me to sway people here when I had a cause that needed it. So at least it goes both ways.
He's got the flask still in his hand and he'll kind of raise it up and he says, and now you've had a taste of the power that you're about to have. The question is now, and he takes a sip from the flask. How will you use it?
Same way I always intended to. There are many seps, but we're one fucking nation. I can't control the Western Seaboard. I can't control what happens in a lot of places. And fuck Juno for using this term until it lost all meaning. But things here can be better. We're already close to Lost Flame. And soon be close to Wolfsmaw. And I guess that makes Wisconsin the outlier, doesn't it? Imagine what we could do if we could actually fucking work together and move forward instead of backsliding. Instead of squabbling over things that won't matter in a decade.
Bastion will walk over to the drawing of the tree that Remy made, or pick up the Sharpie, and he'll flip the page over. He'll put a W on it. Then he'll put a circle where their sept is. And he'll just kind of jab the pen roughly where St. Cloud is. We know what his next step is. We were unable to beat him here. And he taps the cardboard, but we can beat him here.
What do you mean?
He sent the page, and he's got Jenny's drawing. He sent the pages to Sunnyvale to act as ambassadors to St. Cloud, knowing what he knows. He circles Sunnyvale. St. Cloud moves towards us. Weakens us, weakens St. Cloud. He already has a foothold here. He sweeps in, becomes the great peacemaker. Between the two.
He's not here to make peace between us. He's
Not
here to
yet.
cut off their supply lines and let us kill them.
Or so he has told you. What has he told them?
It's a very good question.
Mm,
And one that I can't get an answer to without asking.
not a question we need answered right now.
No. But think about, she points to Remy. Think about what he told us. It's been really easy to call them the enemy this whole time. And the Alpha is driven to do what he's driven to do. Those packs are made up of people. And I'm sure some of those people now are driven by the loss of their pack mates. But they're still people, and soon their supply lines are going to cut off. And they're going to get more and more desperate. How long do you think it takes before they're willing to talk? Not under duress, but to save their own hides, to maybe save the rest of their pack. Because in the end, they're Gaian, aren't they?
In the end, they are Gaian.
And he's Gaian.
He is.
The chances of him coming back after he did to Ragnar. He said he wanted us to know him. she just kind of sighs at that point. Thank you, Bastion. Bring me those answers as soon as you can. I want to know the terms, and I want to know how long they were there.
I will. And he'll make his way out the back of the garage, completely opposite of the way Sylvie and Raimi went.
Because it's. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Like, when Bastion's gone, Raimi whips around. You cannot be considering sparing him. After what he did.
Shakes her head. Oh. I don't think I could, even if I wanted to. There's no wiping away what he did. What he tried to do to us. What he did to Ragnar. He's a dead man.
Raimi takes a deep breath.
Just hasn't realized it and laid down yet. Not the rest of them.
This pack won't go down without a fight. And frankly, I don't want them to go down without a fight.
His pack are probably a lot truer to his cause than people he has known longer. She throws a glance aside. They're people who are committed, like he is. But the other packs, if they're made up of people like Fusion Drop?
Shakes is like Fusion Drop.
How do you know?
Reliable source. His situation, I don't know him personally.
Still, if that's how they're bolstering their numbers, those are people just scared enough to stay. What happens when they earnestly believe they have an alternative? How eager would they be to throw someone who did all that to them under the bus to tell us everything we need to know?
As long as he lives, they will fear for their hostages.
She leans over. Did you find out where he's keeping those people? I don't imagine it's all in the same place. He's not stupid. But where he's keeping any of them?
I don't rightly know. The way it tends to work is they get absorbed into a lot of different places with different uses. He doesn't seem like the type of person to let a resource sit idle, even if he is using that person as leverage against another who is also out working for him.
You said one of them was acting as a debt keeper. Like there's one, in the end, there's one person at the top that all of them are bringing their work back to.
It's more a chain of people. He's trying to think because you could tell he was a little angry a second ago.
I need to know the one that had the most direct contact with the kinfolk themselves, not the top of the totem pole. The one they actually speak to.
That's spread out among several of them.
That's all right.
Fuck.
It's okay if you can't remember right this second, but
I'm working on it.
And Sylvie will come up. She's got a few beers. Reyes?
I'll figure it out.
Yep, Charlotte will happily enough take one when it's offered.
And she'll hold one out for Raimi.
She pops it open, flings
It
the
takes
fucking
it.
cap across the room because it's very satisfying to do.
And And she's gonna look around. Assume Bastion has probably gone off for those hunting lessons, and just set one on some surface that can function as a table.
There are other workplaces like they're essentially like little workshop tables all over
Yeah,
the place. So there are plenty of flat surfaces.
just find some place reasonably clean, uncluttered, plop it down. There's some interesting rumors swirling around.
Are there?
Something in the air. Something's brewing in the docklands. And
The docks.
she'll nod. It's like the weather pattern changed.
Really?
And there's murals that have been seen.
I mean, spit it out. Come on.
Murals have been seen just after Sunnydale along the border, the northern border, I think. They're carved into stone. It's a runic wolf eating the moon, spreading along the borders of the town like a mouth opening to swallow it.
And I'm gonna roll. Aha! Because you get to be the one to bring her to news. Yes. So I'm going to roll my manip sub. And get a surprising amount of successes, really.
Oh boy.
Feel free, madam.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
For Ramie's sake. Well, Charlotte is nodding and kind of like, huh. Essentially okay. Same way she did with the first one. Dude, Ramie, you can feel that kind of... It's something between just kind of that jolt of excitement and what feels like it isn't words, but the general sense of the thought is, oh my god, I knew it. But she's excited. She's not stressed about it. She's fucking ecstatic.
It looks like we're tied.
Defender.
So Sylvie will say, whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. And as much as I know I need to do things on my own, it might be too important to speak to the worm foe about getting this done and getting it done quickly to not be able to call on you for backup if I need it.
Leave the worm foe to me. Don't worry about it.
Understood, Ryan. Thank you.
But have a thought experiment with me for just a minute.
Okay.
What state is Sunnydale in right now?
Since we left,
Hmm?
I imagine the worm taint's starting to come back. Still abandoned. Been that way long enough, people are starting to look into it.
Worm and wild taint.
Yes.
So those banners, based on the direction and the stylings, who do you think is putting them there?
One of the get. If I had to name one, I think most probable, I would say probably Lily.
Quirks a brow, but shrugs. All right. If it looks like a maw is opening and something's about to happen, what is the worst possible thing that could come of it? As far as we're concerned, that looks an awful lot like a Geta Fenris has taken interest.
Yes.
How bad could it go? We need to jump in and intervene.
I don't think it would be so bad that we would need to jump in and intervene.
What we do need to do quickly is your
We-
cave.
Yes, we do. We. I don't. I'm jumping to conclusions here. I don't know this for a fact.
All right.
If Lily is making those marks, it probably relates to some kind of ritual to bring forth or wake up an old spirit
And
to deal
considering
with the problem.
that whatever big thing that she's doing, you know that your tasks play into how well she can do it. Perhaps the best way to act quickly and decisively is to do what we already need to do. We already know we need to do.
Yes.
Instead of getting distracted.
Oh, I wasn't thinking about running off into Sunnydale and helping with that. I was thinking we need to get this done as fast as possible.
Huh? Then why
So
did you need to
whatever-
involve the wormful?
Because we have to go off sept
I'll talk to him about the cave.
to get to the cave.
I will talk to him about the cave. Don't worry about that.
Like, you can see Sylvie's pacing again, but it's not that agitated pacing from before. It's like excited pacing. Like, she is ready to go, but she has to hurry up and wait. Oh, and Raimi, when you have time, I'd like to
Hmm.
speak with you. Privately.
In a few moments.
She'll nod. Go back to pacing and drinking her beer.
Oh, that does it. I'm
Hmm.
bereft of a flower girl.
What?
I'm sorry?
She kind of cracks the snort. I mean, we've already decided, right? That we're doing this. The talons you've made, how many?
11.
More than enough. So as soon as I can drum up a couple more people, we'll go. 3 is probably a little on the slight side. But in the meantime, she kind of shrugs, cracks a. It's that kind of tired grin, like it's that stupid clock grin. I'm about to get married.
You are. Have you decided what you're going to wear yet?
Oh, There's been a lot of deciding over what I'm going to wear.
And what about your hair?
I am sure. Let me make sure I get the name right. I am sure that Samantha Trimbuson has a very specific plan, and I am not going to fuck with it.
Oh, okay. You already have an appointed hairdresser.
I think if someone else tried to do it, she might bite them or stab them. She'd probably stab them. There's firm nodding at this point. I'm pretty sure she'd stab them.
Well, I won't get in the way then, but if you need assistance or anything like that, or she needs assistance, I'm happy to help.
At the risk of sounding like a veritable taskmaster, how are we doing on Gaia's breaths?
I have 2 currently.
Perhaps.
And I was going to say instead of making more wind straws tonight.
Yeah.
I'll make some Gaia's breath and
I'm very good at getting stabbed and shot. And, well, mostly shot lately, to be honest.
By shrapnel.
There may or may not have been some road rash on top
Mhm.
of the getting shot.
The asphalt. Yes, the asphalt.
Yeah, there
Physics.
was not shrapnel. There was definitely asphalt. I am really glad I actually wrote riding leathers. I did not give them enough credit.
I didn't exactly get a play-by-play, but I heard
She
something happened.
threw her crazy rusty spiked bike at my bike.
What?
My options were die in glory or kiss my bike goodbye forever and eat some asphalt. So I did that. Just like looks over at Raimi like she threw her bike at my bike. Like the little like, why would she do that look?
I wasn't there for that, Raya.
I know.
I
You
was
had
busy
you had a guru on the roof of your truck.
driving down a staircase.
You were.
That truck will never rise again.
No. No, it died a good death. It
Were
died
it
in
to-
glory in battle. Shiny and
Well,
chrome.
Were it to be repaired, it would become a ship of Theseus situation.
Let's not and say we did. You know, buddy, she finally reaches over, gives him a pat. Why don't you steal another truck? On me.
I'll work on that, Raya. You wanted me to tell you about something. About Fusion Drop.
I do.
I don't like calling him by that name.
Call him by his real name.
Very well.
I just want to hear how much you saw and heard about who he actually was. Not about Fusion Drop. About the person.
I know he was Chrissy's brother and that he first changed while they were both in bondage. And before he died, she hardly recognized the person that she had grown up with. He died by my hand in front of her. So I do not think it is wise that I go to the one person who could answer that question right now.
I just want to know what you saw. The way you talked about the fight. You saw him. As a person. You talked to him, not to some mask he'd been told to put on.
He was a very honorable and courageous man who thought that he had no options in the world. I did not mince my words. The only things he could see were death, in one form or the other.
You still care about her?
Yes, he did.
It was a sad kind of little smile. That Glasswalker put down his gun. He fought you properly.
He was a Fianna kinfolk before he was a Glasswalker.
No. And it says a lot. It says a lot about the people that brought him up. Whatever happened between his first change and now, he believed he had to be a Glasswalker.
And now he will never see his ancestors again.
Why do you say that?
He is in your homelands now.
You know, there was a time that I worried about that. I thought that once you go where you go, all the people you loved and cared about, the other tribes, you'd never see him again. But you know what Santos reminded me? In the homeland for the Bonars, there's this subway. And just because they're the only ones who talk about having a way to travel, it doesn't mean they're the only ones that can do it. And if he was really meant to be a son of Stag, do you truly think that spirit would deny him access?
It is not for me to speak on.
I don't think it's so simple as saying he'll never see them. Because when Santos died, the only thing that helped was knowing about that subway. Knowing that it connected at least two places together. I would see him again. Eventually. I don't. There's a pause. Like that kind of almost like ear twitch, thing you'd expect in a lupus, like that thoughtful pause. Amy, why don't you talk to Damon?
Because I refuse to inflame the Fianna before the sisters say she is ready.
I don't necessarily mean right this moment. But no matter what he was pressed into doing, if he died like a Fianna, there's no better person to try to tell that story to than Damon. There's no one better to be able to give answers that could give his sister hope.
We will see.
2 knots. Doesn't push it. All right. Either of you need me? You have any other questions? Anything?
For the sake of our efforts, what do you need of me?
For the sake of our efforts. Chews on her lip for a moment. How are you on the gallows at this point?
Middling.
Do you think you have the footing necessary to maybe talk to them about whatever's happening on their neck of the coast?
I think they'd appreciate it more from you. But if you were to send me, I would not endeavor to do them an offense in the asking. They will ask me why you did not come yourself.
Can you not take interest yourself? Aren't you curious?
The terms of tolerance for my curiosity have stricter limits during a time of war.
All right. And actually, Ramy's a guardian, isn't he?
Yes.
Then honestly, at this point, probably one of the best things you can do for me is heed the warder and whatever plan she's making to secure our borders during this wedding. Because we're still at war, and I want to know what lengths we're going to, what we're doing. I want to know what's being planned. I'm not saying leak me every detail like a spy. I'm saying you're doing the job. Reassure me with what you can, so that I know as I invite allies from 3 different seps, what the situation will be and how we're keeping them secure.
I will endeavor to let you know those details that have been entrusted to me. Within reason.
Within reason, of course.
to push for more, in my opinion, would be to court disaster. I can tell you this from my experience. Siggy Ulrichsen takes the security of her Septon territory with the utmost seriousness and professionalism.
Yes, she does.
I think if there were no other details to make you feel secure, it would be wise to rest on that.
And I have every faith in Siggy's intentions and sincerity. The only reason I ask is so that maybe I can help suggest where there might be loopholes that one of those remaining glasswalkers might try to abuse.
Perhaps it would be good to amass clear and simple proofs that can be explained in short sentences. Not that I am implying she is simple, but she will want your reasoning quickly and
She-
concisely.
Yes, of course. Yes, she does. Does not beat
She
around the
wants
bush with
short,
Siggy.
direct answers and evidence. So, my advice to you is if you were to attempt that, you will need both.
Yes. Ah, and Sylvie. There's a pause and point.
Yes, Rhea?
Speaking of all the visitors that we're going to have on set, when the time comes, I imagine Jasper himself will be coming to the wedding. Or at the very least, present at the reception. I will be offering, even if it's cursory, an attendant, a kind of a symbolic honor guard to the allies that I've invited to the Sept for the wedding. Comes to Jasper, I want it to be you.
Rhea, do you think that's wise?
Faint smile. You know him better than any of us do. And I hope by now you're learning not to rise to the bait of being provoked or prompted or taunted into talking. There's some things that just don't need repeating.
I certainly know more what he is capable of now. And who will be watching you during the wedding, Rhea?
The entire Sept. I'm going to be in the middle of everything. I don't need an honor guard. But if you think that there's a threat to me while Leaf is walking me down the aisle, or Lena, Cora, and potentially Artemi are standing alongside me at the front, if you think I'm vulnerable while there's my fiance become a husband next to me that I want nothing more than to protect, no, I'll be fine.
Rhea, punch me if you want to. But I have to say this. There will
So say it.
be many dignitaries gathered all in one place for a celebratory event where a large amount of attention will be placed on protecting the Sept from outside threats.
Mm-hmm.
We still don't know how certain people were taken. You suspect the Guardians have been infiltrated.
There was a point that I worried about, yes.
What if the threat were to come from inside our own Sept?
And do what?
I don't know. But I do know. As well connected as you are, not everyone shares your vision of unity.
No, they don't. Not yet.
And it would probably get in the way of some people's plans, and those people may be at your wedding.
You think they're going to step up and kill me in front of 3 other gathered Septs?
No, I don't think they would step up and kill you in front of the assembled host. But I do think it wouldn't be terribly difficult for them to slip a pin in your dress or something else that would potentially harm you or allow them to better track you.
You think this is something they couldn't do at any other time when there were a fraction of the number of eyes watching?
I think they may have already tried.
And why do you say that?
The peace talks were mentioned. You were there with the dignitaries between Wolfsma and the court of Wisconsin, correct?
It was.
And you specifically had an assassination order put out on yourself.
I did?
Many of those people will be at your wedding, won't they?
The assassination order was not being carried out by a member of that Sept.
I'm not concerned if it was being carried out by a member of that Sept. I'm concerned that they will try again.
Again. Of all the times that an assassin could come looking, why would they choose the one day that everyone's looking at me? That everyone's watching? That at any given moment, no matter what else is happening, no matter who is standing and speaking, someone in the gathered will be looking at me.
You just told me you would die to protect Felix.
Absolutely.
And he will be with you.
He will. And everyone will be looking at him too.
There will be the times where you are separated from each other when you are preparing to go down the aisle.
And he will be surrounded by his groomsmen.
He will.
Who are Guru and Ken alike. And fiercely loyal.
I'm glad. Just make sure they are people you really trust.
Sylvie, come here. She just gestures like, come on.
She'll step forward.
She gets an arm around her, pulls her in. It makes for a very compelling sitcom or a very good book. But killing me or my fiance in front of a gathering, a host of 4 seps is suicide. And here's the thing. I'm an Adrian. People know my name. It doesn't mean that the threat comes from inside these seps. It could. I'm not saying it couldn't. But what am I known for? What do I do that people talk about?
You're known for thwarting assassination attempts or saving dignitaries from
If you
threats
had
against their
to
lives.
say that I represented something, that my actions on the whole represented something, would you say that it's one hell of an idea that I'm trying to push, that I'm trying to enable, that I'm doing everything in my power to make happen?
Yes.
Can you kill an idea?
No.
Made enemies. I've made a lot of friends, Sylvie. And can you imagine the unholy hell that would break out on this sept? Because who in the world do you think can pull something like that off under the nose of Lily and Lena Trimpusen? Under the nose of an Arun without getting away? Or with, and still get away? In front of that entire host. If somebody made an attempt on me, they weren't sane. But those people coming to represent the places that they come from, they won't be as much the center of attention. And honestly, let's face it, this is. Please don't. She glances to Rami. Please don't think I'm saying that it's not important, but I'm trying to respect older ways of doing things. I'm trying to respect ways that aren't mine. And offering a member of the people that I keep close to me, offering any among them to the people that I've invited to watch over them. It's symbolic.
If that is really what you wish, Raya, then I will do it for you.
Do. Amy will be with the group from Last Flame, or Last Hope, pardon. I want you with Jasper because you know him best. Bastion may be a Silverfang, but he's not from Wisconsin. We'll have to offer another to sit among Wolfsmall.
Did McDuncan make a good impression when he was there?
I couldn't say. Made an impression, that's for sure. He did well against Signold. That's something.
He might be a wise choice.
He might be. I haven't decided. But at least in your case, I have. And I want you to politely curry the representatives from Wisconsin, particularly the Von Cares, for me when they're here. And if you're
course, Ray.
worried, that based on your history, consider it a test.
Okay, Raya. I will think of it as a test.
I'm sure you can find a way to make meaningful conversation without saying things you shouldn't.
Oh, I can.
There you go. There's nothing to worry about.
I will just.
At least you know what they expect.
Yes.
Thank you, Sylvie.
You're welcome, Raya. I think I know just what to do.
We'll see. There's a bit of a smile, kind of expectant, like, oh, this should be interesting, essentially. And she'll glance over to Amy after giving Sylvie a pat. I suppose I'm off to go sit by a waterfall and try very, very, very hard to write my vows very, very, very late. So Raya smiles as she hops up.
Best of luck, Raya.
She nods, collects the laptop naturally instead of the actual paper notebook because Glasswalker, and kind of waves idly back over her shoulder. Just don't have too much fun. As she
Oh, of course.
abandons the two in each other's company.
Sylvie will look around as Charlotte leaves, kind of make sure they're alone. Amy, please don't take this the wrong way.
Uh-huh.
Do not let your wife or her kin code you into working for Jasper.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah, she goes.
Maybe sits there for a while. Like 10 minutes. $20. And he goes home.
Well, all right. Anything else, guys?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. On that very tense note, I think we'll call it a scene. So thank you, many, many, many players for playing, and thank you, watchers, for watching. And we will see you in our next adventure in this life.